tell me, first of all, I want to invite Adam for our first time. We started with this podcast because Adam is a guy I know from church, where I used to be pastor. He went to church, and then we also both switched and are over in the church plant now, where I'm a pastor now. And we kind of came from two different sides. I was a policeman for my career and a pastor, and Adam lived a little bit different. Tell us a little about your life. How'd you grow up? When's the first time you got arrested? That kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I grew up kind of like a normal kid, you could say. Moved around. I'm from Oxon Hill, Maryland, and my mother moved to Virginia, where she had met my brother's dad. We got stationed out he got stationed out in Germany. From Germany, ended up in Washington State. So, I mean, childhood was kind of like normal, riding bikes, getting into stupid stuff with your friends. Got into a little bit of trouble, but nothing like majorly serious, anything like major offense type of thing. It wasn't until I was 12 was the first time that I actually got arrested for shoplifting. Following year, I was arrested when I was 13. I was arrested for a burglary in the first degree and possession of a firearm.
And what state was that in?
Washington State.
Washington State.
Yeah.
And then when was the last time you got arrested?
Last time I was arrested, like an official arrest, was...
Are there unofficial arrests?
Well, so I always say like the arrest, but then I also had to go, because of a previous arrest, I had to go do 2 weeks at Prince William County.
Yeah.
So, but the last time I was arrested was February 27th of 2010, the day my daughter was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so from 13, how old were you then?
26.
So for about 13 years there, you were going back and forth. You were getting arrested, you get locked up, coming back out, in and out, different arrests and stuff during that time. And tell us about the first, what was the craziest thing you got into? What was the craziest thing you got into while you were living on that side?
Craziest thing I got into? I don't know.
A lot of crazy things.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of things, and I guess it's kind of like to each his own which one would be the craziest. I mean, I've gotten myself involved in shootings. I stole a car, took the police on a nice little chase, and ended up putting a car into the side of a house.
Did you get caught, or did you?
Oh, yeah.
You got caught?
Yeah, I got caught for that.
Yeah. Did you get hurt at all? Did the police give you a couple extra?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's usually for when they got to chase you, they call it the running tax. You gotta get it. This is the old days, but it is sometimes you get a little extra gift when you get caught.
Yeah.
Where was that? What city or kind of?
That was in Washington State.
Oh, Washington State.
Yeah.
So you were a kid.
Yeah. I was a kid. Yeah.
How old?
So when that happened, maybe like 14.
Really?
14 or 15. Yeah.
And when you were in Washington State, did you actually get locked up over at the juvenile center or whatever?
Raymond Hall.
For how long?
So Raymond Hall, I'd spend a couple months in there.
Then come out.
Yeah. And then I went up to Indian Ridge one time for actually that stolen car. They sent me to Indian Ridge. It's like the juvenile penitentiary.
Okay.
But they sent me up there, and that's a whole nother story about God's mercy in itself right there. I was only there for a few days and actually got released Christmas Eve. I think I might have shared that with you.
Why?
They miscalculated my points, and they brought me back down into Pierce County, and it was Christmas Eve, and the judge told me, Mr. Valenti, we miscalculated your points, and for the inconvenience, you're going to be released today. I was like, say less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you went home, and then after that, you didn't stop though.
Didn't stop. Got out Christmas Eve, was getting high on methamphetamines later that night.
At 14?
At 14.
Yeah, so when did you start using drugs?
The first time that I attempted to smoke weed, I was 12. Like Bill Clinton, I didn't inhale. Mm-hmm. But by 13, I was smoking weed. I had been drunk. First time I got drunk, I was really young. I was like, and then, started drinking 40s.
But what about crystal meth? How are you using crystal meth at 14?
A buddy of mine, his nickname Teddy, his mom actually snorted meth and smoked meth, and she would do that with her son. Uh, and one night I went over there, and she was doing her thing, and she put it on the table, and she was like, "Do you want a line?" I was like, "I've never even seen that before," and she was like, "Well, here you go." And so I did a line with her.
Wait, you weren't scared to try this thing that you'd never seen before?
It was my friend's mom. I didn't think she was. It wasn't crack. That's how I thought.
That's how you.
Yeah. Oh, I was just sitting there thinking like, okay, speed. I'm gonna be up.
Yeah, sure.
And then he comes in the house and he sees what we were doing. So he got some more from his mom, and we went into his room and then we smoked. So that was like the first time.
And what's the high like with crystal meth?
It's not like a euphoric type of thing. You're just up, you're amped, you're ready to go. You're ready to do something. And
Best you ever had, or more like you like the other stuff, other drugs are better? Dippers.
So PCP is definitely my drug of choice.
That would be the best better.
Yeah, that's definitely my drug of choice, just because of how you're out there.
Yeah. And you used PCP for the first time? I'll read that.
14 or 15 the first time I smoked PCP. Yeah.
And you got arrested for selling ever, or did you always for using and breaking in, stealing, that kind of stuff?
So I had possession with the intent, but never a distribution of drugs.
But possession with intent to distribute. And how about in your whole life you never had distribution?
I've never been arrested for a distribution.
For distribution, yeah. And where did you later you ended up hustling? Later you ended up selling?
Yeah.
And you started making a little bit of money at different times, or?
Yeah.
Because I think people misunderstand. They think you're either a user and you're one side, you're off the charts as an addict or whatever, or you hustle, you make a lot of money, you don't mess with drugs, and it's a fine line between, but it's not really, right? You're used a little bit, but you're hustling, you're still, because of the drugs you chose. You can do that with dippers. You couldn't do that, say, with heroin or with other drugs.
Right.
With dippers is just term to explain to them what a dipper is, maybe.
A dipper is you take a cigarette and you will dip it inside of PCP.
And PCP is liquid?
Yeah.
And so it'd be like in a vanilla extract bottle usually?
An extract bottle. I've seen it. They had like the little glass jars.
Yeah.
They'll get like from the stores. Sold them at the vitamin shop, a dropper bottle.
Right.
And, they're a 1 ounce size bottle or a half ounce size bottle. And we would get.
You just dip a cigarette in it, and then just the top of the cigarette?
Yeah, just the tips of it. You would dip it in, and then, you hold it upside down and you suck it back so it pulls down.
And so with dippers, it didn't like destroy your life. So you could still make money, you could still think, that kind of stuff.
Right out with me. So I'm gonna say it destroyed my life, but I still, did what I
wanted to make money.
Yeah, wanted to make money. I mean, when I was smoking PCP, I was also selling cocaine, selling weed. I sold ecstasy pills. If there was a demand for it and I could get it, I would sell it.
That's the key too, right? Is you got to have the other end. You got to have somebody to get it from. So even if I got 50 guys that want to buy ecstasy, you didn't all the time have somebody you could get ecstasy from. At different times, it's got a good connect, and other times, not so good. Is that fair? Just depends on who's got it and who you...
The price.
Yeah, price. It's true. You price you out of it, so you don't want to spend that. Yeah, you can't make any money,
Yeah, try to find a good wholesale, and then...
Right.
Still need somebody to move it. That's how I also found out about Radford, that school. The university, I had been like a party school because I had some friends that were living on campus, and they had told me like, yo, can you get a hold of this, and that? And I was like, yeah, I actually have it all here at the house,
Really? To college kids?
Yeah, they came and picked it up for me, and they would go back there and distribute it.
Wow. So you had a market with way over to university.
Yeah.
Southern Virginia. That's about, how many hours from here? About 3 hours from here.
No clue. Never been down.
Never been there. Never went down to the college. The kids just would come to you and get...
No, I had 3 friends that were there, and they would come to see me, and they would go back down there. Yeah, I didn't... There was a lot of things, like once I started like selling more than just weed, and I started picking up half a brick of cocaine, You know, pounds of weed, hundreds of ecstasy pills, you know, ounces of PCP. I kind of like distanced myself from a lot of people because I didn't want to be in, you know, seen in all that crowd, you know. So it was like a select few individuals that I would.
So for a while, you were actually making money. You're doing pretty good.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had my own apartment, cars. I was paying for my car, my ex-wife's car, paid off a couple of my friends' debts. Yeah, bought a friend a car. Yeah.
And then where did it all go? What happened to it? You saved it on the bank?
Nope.
You got it off from Bermuda somewhere in an account?
No, blew all the money
Yeah.
on attorney fees because I actually ended up getting locked up.
And then you paid the lawyer?
Paid the lawyer, it cost it $12,000.
Really?
Yeah, paid that. And then because of, you know, I was just blowing money. I just was kind of like my wife had ended up leaving me. Well, my ex-wife, yeah, she left me. She wanted me to cooperate with the police in that situation, and I wouldn't do it. So, you know, we had our fallout. She left, and so I was just between smoking PCP and drinking gallons of Hennessy. Yeah.
How often would you drink a gallon of Hennessy?
As often as I could.
That's how much as you could. It wasn't a schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you and at that time, then you weren't making as much money. You were just spending money.
Yeah, I was just blowing money because my connect, he was like, hey man, you know, you got some pretty serious charges.
Yeah, I can't really do nothing right now.
Yeah, because when I got arrested, I was charged for possession with the intent to distribute crack cocaine and possession with the intent to distribute PCP. He didn't want nothing to do with me.
So that's something that, just so people understand, when you get locked up, it messes you up obviously with your family, with the police. Obviously, you're going to court, the judge, all that. But also in your other world, your friends, your suppliers, the guys who buy from you, everybody's nervous, right?
Yeah, the eyes will be on you. You know, the eyes of the people want to see what your next move is. You know, how desperate will you get? You know, I went against the grain on all of that, and that's why, like, even after that, like my friend circle is really small because I saw like who was there just for the money, the parties, and the people who were there was like, man, you my friend whether you got money or not. Right. You know what I mean?
And just a few of those.
Just a few of them, and one of them died a couple years ago, and then there's still maybe like 3 of them left.
And the when you were living like this, the thought of cooperation or snitching or whatever, you weren't doing. You didn't have nothing to do with it.
I didn't want to, and I didn't. To say I didn't consider it, you know, it went through my head because I was like, man, you know, all this can go away. And then I was just like, man, you know, this is the downside that you don't hear the rappers talking about.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Everything's all good when you're selling kilos of cocaine, pounds of marijuana, and you got money, women, all, you know, you got all that stuff. But this was the downside.
And here you were.
And I was like, you know, I played the game, you know what I mean? And this is part of the game, you know?
Yeah.
So
how long were you facing in jail at that time on that charge?
So my attorney told me that each charge carried 5 to 20 years. So
that was the most serious time you faced.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening to the case?
So I took a plea bargain. They dropped the possession with the intent of the crack cocaine. And I pled guilty to the possession with the intent of PCP. They sentenced me to 3 years state penitentiary and suspended all 3 years of that, and put me on probation, intensive supervision. And I had to complete that. I had 3 years to do on that. And they were like, no screw ups. You catch any charges, you will do 3 years flat, no good time.
And so when you got out, were you still using that note, right? You still smoking dippers and stuff? Or no?
Yeah, I was smoking dippers up until the point where I got put on probation, because of how intense the probation was in the
It
beginning.
was urine tests and everything.
Yeah, I was seeing my probation officer once a week. I would have to go to Fairfax to see them. They would come to my house and come see me. And then I had to do what is that? Alcohol drug services. And so I was peeing in a cup like I was a pro at it.
So you did there.
I didn't want to do anything, and it wasn't until like they started backing off me, giving me my freedom back, that I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and smoke PCP again, because I figured I could get away with it, and I was getting away with it until I got a drunk in public. My probation officer wanted to violate me, and I gave it to her flat. I was like, look, I wasn't drunk. I was smoking PCP. And she was like, that's not any better. I was like, I didn't know, but I relapsed. I'm trying to play the system down. Yeah. Like, I don't want to go back, into jail and take a chance of doing 3 years.
Right.
So I was like, man, I think we should put me on color code. I was like, so you call a number every day, and they list off colors. And if your color is blue, and that's what they call, you have to go down and take a drug test.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I was like, if we do that, then I think that'll help me stay sober. And she was like, okay, fine, we'll do color code. And so I did good. I was like 2 months of being on color code. I was doing all right. And then I caught the pattern of my color. And I was like, okay, this is perfect. Call them color today. I got 2.5, 3 weeks before they call it again. You know what I mean? So I was back smoking PCP.
How long in your system before it was
They say like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So the moment, So the moment I went and took that drug test, I was gonna be out getting high later on,
Right.
for like the next day or so.
Now, I was a DC policeman. You and I never interacted on the streets, but where did you used to buy PCP in the city?
So the first time we got it out the city, it was Yuma.
900 block to Yuma. And what did you do? What did you do? Tell me about that night. Who talked you into going down there to Yuma? I mean, that's a scary place.
So I wasn't talked into it.
Yeah.
I was all for it.
Yeah.
So I was talking with a buddy of mine, and he was like, yeah, I know where to get it. And I was like, for real? And he was like, yeah, man, just got to go out Yuma. And he was like, they got that man down. And I was like, sounds great. So we went out there, and then I watched every way how to get out there, because I had never been there before. And so we went there, and he just walked up to somebody. I was like, you know them? He was like, nah, it's the Strip. And I was like, oh, like down on Valley, like where we used to get weed from. And he was like, yeah, man. He was like, everybody out here got it. They'll find you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So one night I just like, hey, I don't need to smoke with him. I can just go down there.
So you go by yourself too?
I went out there by myself, and didn't know anybody. I would, the first time I went out there, it was just like, let me get a stick, and a stick is a dipper. And so I would get one, and I would smoke it. If it was good, I would go back to that same dude and get maybe a couple more and bring
Same night?
Same night.
So you try one, if it was good, you go right back and get him one.
Yeah. And then I would go bring it back out here and toss it in the freezer for later. Or
everybody love PCP in the freezer, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And always.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about that freezer, but yeah.
So the dippers, how much were you paying for each one?
20 or 25, depending on
that's what we paid. So I'm a policeman buying drugs, and I'm paying 25 or 23, whatever I could get it for. But 25. But the dipper, the problem is, did you get to bring your own cigarette, or they give it to you already in a little sandwich bag?
Nah, they would always ask me for a cigarette,
and that way also, do you tell them sometimes, hey man, hit again? It's not they didn't dip it very much.
No, the guy always
he was always good.
Yeah, he was always looking out, and whether it be a guy, female.
Yeah.
I mean,
you didn't have to do that. You didn't have any argument. And everybody was cool. No problems. Never got problems.
They were kind of sketchy because they looked at me and they like,
yeah,
what's the amigo doing out here? You know what I mean? And so like I would get to talking with them, and they, they would do it. Like the first one, who like gave me a problem was that some dude and then some lady was like, "Come here, honey, I got you." You know what I mean? And started seeing me.
Yeah, once you come back, nobody gets locked up.
Yeah.
And he never had to smoke one in front of him or anything? No, no problem like that.
No problems.
So you're going down there. Where else did you go? Yuma? Valley?
Yuma.
Yeah.
Another one that we used to go to, and that one was famous, 18th and M.
Right. That was packed with guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a crazy spot. There's another spot, Bennett Road, or was it Bennett Courts, that we used to go to. What did they say it was? Staten Terrace or something like that?
Stanton, Alabama. That was Staten Terrace. So what, now when you would go there, though, no robbery, never got locked up?
Never got locked up. I had a gun put to my chest one night because I told him, I was like, man, your water doesn't smell right. You know what I mean? So.
And water was the PCP.
Water's PCP.
Right.
Yeah.
So you say your water didn't smell right.
Yeah.
What do you do?
And we were arguing about it because he had already dipped it.
Yeah.
And, I was like, no, I don't want it. And he was like, I already did this. He was like, you're going to pay for it. And I was like, I'm not.
Because nobody wants to buy it. Nobody wants to buy it already wet.
Yeah.
They want to see different.
Yep.
Yeah.
The dude ended up putting a gun to my chest, like right here, big old 45 to my chest. And I was like, oh, there we go. You know what I mean? He was like, give me my money. And so I gave him the $25 that he wanted.
Right.
And he threw the dipper at me and he was like, now go get high. I smoked it. And it was good.
It was good.
It was good.
He was right the whole time.
Right the whole time.
You could have saved a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got myself killed.
Yeah, could get yourself killed arguing over the wrong thing. Yeah. Okay, so look. So now what happens? Why in the world are me and you sitting here talking? Policemen, did you like the police? Were they your favorite people?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They could, at that point in my life, they could crash into a car, burn to death, and I would have been like laughing and saying some nasty things.
Right. No love for the police.
No love. No love, I mean.
And yet here we are sitting here talking. Well, what changed? Why in the world are we talking about God and what happened?
Well, that's the thing right there is God. God, he woke me up. He woke me up one day. I was just at a point in my life, I wasn't smoking PCP anymore. I was just smoking a lot of weed. Was even growing it in the closet. And my uncle had passed away. I was just like lost. I didn't know anything, right? And I was high and I was going to the gym every day. I would smoke weed before I go to the gym, listen to music. And then one day I'll go to the gym and it just randomly, in my head, like if you didn't catch us on last week, you can check us out on podcasts. And this was because my mom took me to McLean Bible one time. And that's what Lon Solomon would say if you weren't there the week before. Right. And I'm like high as a kite. And I remembered he said that. And I was like, maybe I'll listen to the podcast instead of this music. So I went, I looked it up on podcast, McLean Bible Church. I found it, but there was a whole bunch of sermons. And I didn't know that there was an actual sequence. I didn't know anything. Right. So I just did the scroll and whatever it lands on is what it did. So that's what I did.
Kind of like Vegas. You did spin the wheel.
Spin the sermon. So I did that and then I listened and I was like, man, I've never really heard the Bible explained like that. You know what I mean? Like the so what, how long he would give you the verse, give you the story, like paint this picture, and then would bring it to like how we could apply that to our lives. Like, what's this mean? And I was just like, wow, you know what I mean? Like that was actually really interesting. You know what I mean? And maybe I was really high, but I was really interested. Right. So I was like, okay, I'll listen to another one. And so that kind of like became my new gym routine is I would go to the gym. I would smoke, go to the gym, listen to a sermon, and then I would listen to my music. Right. And then there was one day, like I was there I was at the little bench. I was in between my sets, and then Lon was asking about, like, you know, if you wanted to pray salvation that day. And that day is when I did it. I just, you know, I set the dumbbells down, bowed my head, closed my eyes, and, you know, we prayed the salvation prayer. That was the day that I could say, like, I had received Christ. And
How old were you then?
30,
You're
yeah,
30 years old. You got how many kids at that point?
5 kids,
5 kids. How many different mothers?
3.
3 different mothers. How was your life going right then? Job-wise, all that?
I mean, I was working.
Yeah.
It was like some bum hours. Like, I was getting really shortchanged on my hours at work. Things weren't really doing too good.
Right.
At that point in my life, we had lost our apartment. Me and my wife were like flat broke, but we always had money for some weed at that point. You know, just things weren't really that good. We were even staying at my mother's house. And like I said, my uncle had died. So, I mean, things just kind of like, that point sucked.
Yeah.
When I prayed and received Christ that day, things like slowly started to change. My perspective on things changed. My habits on doing things changed.
Right.
Just like a nice slow uphill climb. You know what I mean? And what I came to realize is that, like, my life was broken. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a mess. It needed to get fixed. And I look back and I would see, like, all these years of me doing things my way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I'm really not doing too much more than before. You know what I mean? I was high all the time and I was drinking still. But, you know, I remember I prayed and I was like, Lord, I'm a mess and I need some fixing. You know what I mean? Even to this day, there's still things that he's fixing.
Yeah.
You know what
Well,
I'm saying?
you're not alone there. You're not alone there. He's still fixing all of us. And this side of heaven, you know, little by little. The change. So when you're, you know, this is a story for me because here I was working the other side, trying to arrest guys like you and trying to catch you. We really love to get a suburban guy from Virginia. That was like a bonus because we would always be just getting the DC guys living on Yuma or living over on M Street or whatever. So we would love to get a buyer come in from the city, especially if they come in from the county. They would drive all the way from Baltimore, or big Baltimore guys would drive down there all the time. White guys from Baltimore, and then we see guys come in. So yeah, we would have been looking at things completely different. But to think that one of those guys that I locked up all the time would have ever met Christ and be sitting here talking to me about a changed life in Jesus and still know what dippers are and all that, you know, because like I go to church every week, and if I say dipper in sermon, nobody knows what the heck I'm talking about. You know, you mean flipper? That's right, that's right. So to sit here and see not what you've done or what I have done, but what Christ can do. And so he can change a policeman and he can change somebody on the other side of the tracks. You know, this is the power of God.
That is God.
So how's your life change now? Tell me what it's like today. You know, if you were to summarize, I mean, obviously you're married now. You're married to Adise, and you've been together for how long?
Man, I want to say like 13 or 14 years.
Really?
Yeah, 13.
And your kids? How many of your kids have been?
We've been together longer than that because Marie's 13.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
So maybe like 14 or 15 years.
Really?
Yeah.
And how many kids you got?
So with Adise, I have 2 kids. But I have 5 total. So my youngest 2 that are with my wife is Marie and Sophia.
Yeah. And they're doing good. You're going to softball tournaments. I mean, you're in a different world now.
Yeah, softball tournaments, taekwondo with the youngest one, volleyball,
and Bible study and all this kind of stuff.
Attempting to do Bible studies. Yeah. I'm not working full time right now.
But you've been working most of the time.
Working, staying out of trouble, being able to actually talk to a police officer.
Yeah.
And like understand his point of view, things like that. And to be able to like try to help my children, like, hey, you know, this, regardless of what a lot of people over here might say, this individual's actually trying to help you. You know what I mean? Stop being a jerk. I've already been there and done that. Like, let's just do the right thing. You know, things are not every day is like, you know, shout to joy. But I will say, like, I have peace. I could sleep at nighttime. I have hope.
So how do you compare? Look, you could still do that. Why is it you're not smoking dippers every day? Just answer that. Why not? What's the big deal? Your pastor wouldn't know.
Because God would.
Yeah.
God would. And I know that there's one day that I'm gonna have to stand before Christ. I've already done enough things. I don't even deserve to be in God's presence. You know what I'm saying? But because God loved us, you know what I'm saying, loves us, and he sent Christ to atone for our sins, I now have access, and now he sees me. You know what I mean? And that's something that I think about it, and it makes me encourages me to want to be a better individual. You know what I'm saying? And to show others, like, hey, this guy, when he says that he met Christ, he's for real.
Yeah.
He's not like one of those dudes who just go to church on Christmas Eve or Easter and, you know, shouts a few hallelujahs. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be a better example and let people see God's word.
Now, have you been able to share the gospel, share this truth and how Christ changed your life with friends and with other guys from the other life?
Yeah, I have, like, one of my friends, Coco, you know, he's passed away. I used to share a lot of things with him, and he's seen it. Like, he would always tell everybody, like, man, Adam has changed. That's not the same dude who might have killed you a few years back. So he's seen it. I got friends who
What happened to Coco?
he was murdered.
Where? In Washington, right?
No, in DC.
In D.C., yeah.
Yeah.
Same places you guys used to go.
Same places we used to go.
I mean, it's like two different paths, right?
Mhm.
And now, when you think about the Bible, how do you look at the Bible? What's the Bible?
I mean, that's God's letter to us. I mean, it's more than just a book. Like, there's, you know, at school you have your history books that you have to go through, but in the Bible you see history. You know what I mean? You see so much in there. Like, I've read the Bible probably twice now, and I still feel as if I'm just really blowing the dust off.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's so complex, and like there's so many simple things in there, but there's a lot of things that it's like, wow, you know. And I read it, and when I reread it, I'm like, man, I swear this wasn't in there the last time I read it.
That's right.
You know, when you see like the lineage of Christ, and you see how, you know, how he comes from a long list of prophets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, things like that. I missed it one time, and I remember I shared that with somebody at church, and they were like, yeah, we knew that. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm not just you know, you see like history of how man just completely continues to screw things up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's just, like, to think that, like, God would give us this book to read, you know, it should be more than just we set it down. Like, we should really pick it up and dive into it, you know? So.
And when you think about, you and I went on a mission trip. You and I went to Mexico.
Correct.
And we talked to a lot of guys that have been in gangs and have been on the other side, been in and out of prison in the U.S. and in Mexico. How was that trip? How did that trip affect you?
It was such an eye-opener for me. Like, when we hit Mexico, because when we were in California, like, I kind of, stuff that we saw there at the Dream Center, it was like, well, you know, seeing that, they got the same issues.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing some awesome things at the Dream Center. But when we went to Mexico, seeing people live a dump, like, that was something else. Like, man, my kids, like, when I came back, right, if they dropped food on the floor, they threw it away. I picked it up and ate it. And I was like, that's looking at me crazy. I'm like, man, people are living where we send all our trash. Like, this is where they live. That's their residence.
Yes.
And they dig through this stuff. They're looking for food. They were taking refrigerators and stuff like that, burning them to get the copper or whatnot to sell. And you know, the children there are breathing all the toxins in. These people live there. I was there for a day, and my lungs felt a little messed up.
Right.
And these people, that's their life. You know what I mean? To see like how those water tanks that they had there, like that's what they had to live off of.
Right.
And we sit here and just cut the water on and let it run while we go do something else. Like, it was an eye opener, and it lets me know, like, you know, one, it made me grateful for everything that we got going on here. Like, that poverty was something else. It makes me really grateful, but it also lets me know that, man, like, even though that situation was going on, how bad it was, the gospel was still being shared out there. So there is people with hope, but there's still a lot of brokenness out there. And I think here in America, we tend to only look in our front and backyard for like what's there. And we don't look at, you know, some of these problems, like real problems in other countries, you know, and that was just one place in Mexico, you know what I mean? So, you know, think of the world is big.
Yeah.
World's big.
A lot of need. And the guys that, if you were talking to a guy who was you, he was 14 years old, he just got locked up for the second time, he started messing around with drugs, what would you tell him then?
Tell him he got a few things coming for him. He's either got a real rough road ahead of him, if he gets to live to go down that road, or he can take some time now and try to change his life. You know, I would try to share the gospel. I would share, you know, my life experiences with them, and also how the gospel has changed me. You know what I mean? Even if it's just like a hymn, like, yo, okay, old man. You know, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that because, you know, I think, like, not every person you share the gospel with is going to receive Christ in that moment. Right. But it's that seed that gets planted, you know, with a kid like that, because people were like that in my life. At one point, I didn't care nothing about God. Like, I was borderline atheist at a point in my life. But seeds that were planted then is sprouted. And some of them even now still starting to take root. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's really cool. It's really cool. And you know, I'm grateful because I get to look back now and even see God's mercy, how, like, back then, how he was. You know, I got a lot of friends that aren't here, you know.
God has mercy. You can see how even before you became a Christian, God had his hand on you all the way through, huh?
Oh, yeah. So
all the tough things.
So going back to what we were talking about even earlier when I said I was just in Indian Ridge for a few days. So I got sentenced to 9 months in Indian Ridge. And, you know, that I was like, this is going to be my first real bid. And I remember I went back to my cell that night and I was just like, God, if you're hearing, if you can get me out of this, I promise I'll be good. You know, right? Yeah. I remember that. I remember going back to my cell and saying that, you know, I went up there to Indian Ridge and I was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to do these 9 months. But then when I got that call down to, you could say, like, the warden, I went into his office and he told me, like, hey, this is what's going on. You're going back to Pierce County tomorrow. And I was like, what? Okay. So when I went down there, and like I said, I got released. And that was God showing me, like, yo, I heard your prayer. Right. You know what I mean? Right. I did something and got you out of this. You know what I mean? They messed up on my points. Like, they do this stuff all day. You know what I mean? And they caught it. Yeah. Who caught it? So anyway, something like that. You know, I look back now and I'm like, thank you. You know what I mean? And it showed, like I said, God holding up his hand. It was me who always ran from him. Even to this day, sometimes when in my rebellion, I'm running from him until he's like, hold up, come back, you know?
Right. He's a merciful God.
He's so merciful, so merciful.
All right, do me a favor. Will you pray for folks who might hear this, might hear your story, and ask God to speak to them?
Absolutely.
Sorry, you pray.
Father God, thank you, Lord, for setting up this meeting today, Lord. Thank you for allowing me to share how you worked in my life, Lord. This isn't because I'm some type of superhero or anything, Lord. This is all your work, and may the glory go to you, Father. And I pray that any individual that hears this, Lord, and it touches their heart, Lord, I pray that you would just speak to them and bring them to a spot where they can come to you and surrender their life to you. Or even if it's a Christian who's been walking with you for many years, who just needs to get some things off of his chest and give thanks, Lord, and repent for anything, Lord. We just pray that your will would be done in these individuals' lives, Lord. We pray, Father, for many more meetings like this with others, Lord, and that, just your truth would reach every ear, Lord, and that, you would just touch and save souls, Lord. We pray for Pastor Dale, that you would continue using him to set these things up, Lord, and may all this labor, Lord, just produce fruit for your kingdom. Lord, in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.